No, nobody by that.
No.
Oh, Carol's on mute.
There's plenty of Murphys out there, I tell you.
Are you in Ireland right now, Brendan?
No, I wish. It would be good to get out of my house no matter where it would be. Dublin, Ireland, Dublin, California, either place would be nice to escape to. So,
Just before the pandemic, my family and I went to Ireland. We loved it.
the hospitality there, I went many decades ago. The hospitality was amazing. The people were so warm and welcoming.
Yes.
They just make it an incredible journey. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you got a chance to go. Did you see the Book of Kells by any chance?
Yes, we did. Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
Amazing. Yes. Yes.
So too good stuff. One of these days, get back to Ireland. That's on my things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Oh man, good memories. Cool.
Brendan, would you be needing breakout rooms?
I don't think so. How many people do we have here today?
Right now 24, but we'll go to 30 something.
Then yeah, we probably won't need breakout rooms. We just need victims. I mean volunteers that you're gonna find. For me.
We have plenty, definitely.
Okay, fantastic. We can go through them.
Derek's here. Welcome, Derek.
Good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great, Derek.
Happy
How
New
are
Year.
you?
Yes.
And let me be the first to say good night, everybody. This is Toastmaster Spurgeon here.
Nice.
Welcome, Spurgeon.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Spurgeon.
Thank you so much.
I know you didn't hear me earlier. You were still connecting.
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, Kennedy's here. Hi, Kennedy. I think he's still on mute too. Yep.
"30 seconds to start time." Hi, Emily. Great to have you. Hello, Alan.
To be here.
Hi, it's great.
Great.
It's very hot in the Caribbean, so I'm a little bit sweaty. You'll have to forgive me.
Be happy you're not in Bahrain. It's like 100 degrees there.
Hi,
It's
Elma.
so hot.
I am back.
Welcome back.
Great. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Elma, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome to Intercontinental Toastmasters. My name is Abhijit Joshi. Before we proceed, everyone, please mute their mics. Let me introduce our Toastmaster for today, Dharni Kannan. Dharni, it's all you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Good morning and good evening, everyone. We have a special speaker today. This evening's guest speaker is distinguished Toastmaster Brendan James Murphy. He has been part of our organization for more than 23 years and still continues to be amazed at what Toastmasters has taught him. He has given workshops on hundreds of subjects, but being of Irish descent, he loves to talk about talking. Today at our club, he's talking about impromptu speaking, or as it known in Toastmasters, table topics. He is a past District 57 table topics champion, and in his journey of being a table topics contestant, he came up with suggestions for impromptu speaking that are so strong that he thinks they should be made law. Ladies and gentlemen, and fellow Toastmasters, please help me welcome Brendan and his Murphy's Laws of Table Topics. Welcome, Brendan, over to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction. Everybody at Intercontinental Toastmasters, an honored guest. Very glad to be here tonight and to share with you these laws that I consider sacred and challenging at the same time. But first, I have to get you to confess. How many of you out there have ever gone to a meeting with food in front of you and you thought, I'm going to put myself on mute, turn off the camera, and just listen while I'm consuming food? I know it's everybody, maybe somebody right now. I won't take that as a comment on my speaking, but I will confess that I used to do that at AT&T way back in the early 2000s when I had just started Toastmasters, and I would get on these meetings and multitask by listening and eating lunch. One day, I was really hungry and it was 12:45 at a 1 o'clock meeting. I ran out and got a delicious burrito with chips and an ice cold Diet Coke. Ran back to my desk, and at 12:59, I logged on to the meeting and I said, hey, this is Brendan. And then I put myself on mute. And then I slid that beautiful burrito with its cilantro and rice and black beans and sour cream. And I started to unwrap the foil from the burrito. And they said something weird on the call. Brendan, we have a question for you. Put down my little burrito, came off of mute, and answered their question. I was so surprised. I had no idea I was going to be involved at all in the meeting except as a listener. And I gave them a response about our new software that's going to come in a month. And they said, thank you. And they thanked me by asking another question. I took a quick glance at my burrito and said, yes, well, that's a good question. And I answered that question, was a little bit longer, did in about 2 minutes. And question after question came. And it took me between 30 seconds and 2.5 minutes to answer all their questions because of the details that they were requesting. And I was amazed at what I was able to do 50 minutes later when I had a cold, stinky, wet, damp burrito, water melted Diet Coke. I realized Toastmasters is amazing. Before that day, I enjoyed table topics because I thought it was fun. I would go to the meeting and have fun. And then when I had a prepared speech to give, okay, that was work and that was good. But impromptu speaking, oh, that's just fun. No, no, no. Impromptu speaking is vital. And when I was able to perform at that meeting where the burrito was cast aside, I was able to use my table topic skills to communicate and connect with that audience. So there was no further discussion, no further meetings needed for the implementation of our new software. Table topics is powerful. And because it is powerful today, I want to challenge you with some laws that I believe will make you even better at your impromptu speaking when you get up in your weekly or monthly meeting and get a table topic. I encourage you to challenge yourself with these laws, so that when you go outside of Toastmasters and somebody asks you for an impromptu answer, you are ready to deliver and deliver with confidence and enthusiasm. Please take these as a challenge. These are not official rules. These are Murphy's Laws, which makes them better than any official rules out there. So let's get started with a preview of what you're about to see. First, we're going to talk about the first law. Then we're going to have a little practice session, and Abhi has promised me some volunteers, so I'm going to reach out to him every time I need a volunteer, and we'll appreciate your participation in advance, even if you're voluntold at that point. We'll talk about the second law, and then we're going to practice on that law a little bit. And then we'll go to the third law, and because it's Friday night, I'm in a good mood at the end of the work week, I'm going to give you a bonus law for table topics. So it's just something I feel generous to do. We'll talk about that. We're going to summarize everything. And really what I would like to do is have a good chunk of time for Q&A. And in doing so, please write down your questions. You can put them in chat or just bring them up during the Q&A. Let me make this promise to you that if I don't answer your questions during the workshop or during the Q&A, I will stay longer if the Zoom room is open, or I will give you my email address and you can ask me further questions, because once again, I love talking about talking, and based on my experience with impromptu speaking, which Toastmasters has given me those skills, based on that experience, I want you to have those same powers to persuade, inform, and maybe even entertain a little bit every time somebody asks you a question. All right, let's get going with law number 1. Silence sucks. We live in a world with constant stimulation, from our phones to your TVs, to your radios, your music, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. There's always sound coming at us. And people in general are a little uncomfortable with silence. So when it comes to table topics in Toastmasters, you receive a table topics and you are encouraged to respond to it. But there's no rule in table topics that you have to start speaking right away. In fact, you'll see some contests where contestants get a table topic and they ponder and they think and they step back a little bit. An idea appears on their face and they step into it and start. I get uncomfortable when that happens. And I believe that defeats part of the purpose, because remember, even if you're not speaking, you're still communicating. And I want to encourage you to communicate with confidence and enthusiasm. And so I want you to say, silence, forget that. I want you to take that table topics and get going right away. And how you do that and still make sense out of your table topic response is to use the Toastmasters magic words. That's right. These are magic words. You should all know them by now. Mr. or Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most honored and welcome guest. What is this? This is a simple address. It indicates your politeness towards the audience. Actually, it's a polite nothing. It has no content per se, but it does introduce yourself as somebody who cares about the audience. It's like saying, hi, how are you? So I feel it's very important to use that, but in table topics, it is a vital crutch for you, right? If you can take this sentence, these magic words, and use them to your advantage, then I say by all means do it. Some people don't use these kind of phrases anymore. They think it's quaint or trite. It is a polite nothing, but it's a powerful polite nothing. So I encourage you to use it for that reason. But in table topics, especially, you use that, because when you're doing these magic words, you're thinking. You're thinking. And it gives you a few seconds to think. So for the magic words, of course, they need to be unconscious. And one of the key things is, if it's a Madam or Mr. Toastmaster, well, you got to use the right one there. But just make sure it's an unconscious phrase for you, just to blurt out without even thinking about it. You don't want to have to think about it, because you're going to be thinking about something else. Use it to enhance your pauses as well. Mr. Toastmaster, pause. Fellow Toastmasters, pause. Most honored and welcome guests, pause. And that gives you a chance to extend this. Also, you just slow down the rate of how you speak with the words. You could go, Mr. Toastmaster, or you could say, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow guest. These types of things that you just extend, and adding the pauses in between, I want to challenge you, without it being awkward, to speak these magic words in 4 to 6 seconds. 4 to 6 seconds is the time I think you'll need to continue on. You're going to have to make some decisions while you're speaking these unconscious words to the audience. It gets you going, it avoids silence, and once you make your decisions, you're off and running. But if you can do this in an unconscious and kind of stretched out way, you have plenty of time to start responding to your table topic. All right, let's practice this then. What I'm going to ask is for you to practice the timing of your magic words. And we're going to use 2 or 3 volunteers for this one. But please remember, stretch it out, stretch out the words, use the pauses to stretch out the phrase just a little bit to see if you can get up to 6 seconds without it being awkward. If it's awkward, Mr. Toastmasters, it doesn't help you at all. So that's worse than silence. So we want, again, to have these smooth words out there with 4 to 6 seconds. So with that, Abhi, who is my first victim of the day?
Jaimal.
Jed Lowe, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, when I say go, I'm going to start the timing and see how you do. On your marks, get set, go.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most honored and welcomed guests.
Fantastic. 7.5 seconds. Nice stretch. Now, did that feel awkward to you doing it that way, or did you feel fine? That was comfortable for you.
It was comfortable. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
When you practice this more and more, you're going to just have that out there, and it's a little bit longer and a little bit more pausing in there. You have to practice that so you're used to that phrase, and then you can jump in. Let's hear it for our first victim of the day. Yay! Abhi, give me another victim. I volunteer, please. You're on mute, Abhi.
Niharika.
Right. You ready? Okay, you ready to go? When I say go, you go. Okay, on your marks, get set, go.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and all welcome guests.
Very nice. Just over 6 seconds. And how did you feel while doing that, Durrani? Did you feel like that was a smooth thing, or did it kind of trip you up trying to extend it?
It was natural, like addressing the audience.
Yes, fantastic. Now, I put there just to fill it up with, most honored and welcome guests. Oftentimes you'll hear Toastmasters, when they're not trying to stretch it out, to say fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. That's fine too, but however you want to phrase it. But the reason I put that extra honored in there is because I wanted to make sure we can get to 6 seconds or a little bit more. All right, so based on those 2 first volunteers, you guys know how to extend your opening address to give you time to think. And just practice that, make sure you're comfortable with it. And when you jump into table topics in your club, start with that phrase, even if it's something new to them, you get a chance to practice there so that when you're up in front of a contest, you're able to make those magic words work. But what if you're not in Toastmasters? What kind of magic words could you substitute for those Toastmasters magic words at work? You're in a meeting. You're thinking, hey, you're just here listening, and they ask you a question. You have to start thinking of how you're going to respond without looking like a bumbling fool. What magic words can you use to give you a few seconds of thinking without appearing less than enthusiastic or confident? What would those magic words be at work? The equivalent to those magic words at work. Abhi, do you have another victim for me? And this one's going to, yeah.
Ashutosh.
Ashutosh. Fine. Ashutosh, you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. So Ashutosh, I'm going to ask you for your words that you would use in a work situation as opposed to the Toastmasters words. And I will also time you, but somebody asks you a question in a meeting, on your marks, get set, go.
Thanks, Brandon. That is a pretty interesting question. I think the solution for that is
Nice. 6.5 seconds. Nicely done. All right. So you acknowledge the question, you take a little time with that, and you say you're going to prep them with a solution, and you have something that's ready to go. A neat formula for you. Very nicely done. Thank you so much for that one. And let's see if we can get another victim here trying to use some kind of magic words that you could use at work as opposed to Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Who's my next volunteer?
Sarika.
Sarika. You ready, Sarika?
Yes.
All right. So once again, what would you say at work? You're in a meeting, they ask you a question and you have to start speaking just to make sure that you appear confident. On your marks, get set, go.
How would you implement that project? That's an interesting question. There are 3 ways to go about it.
Nice, nice. 8 seconds there, right? She gave a little preview of what she's going to talk about, and she got started right off. Silence is not necessarily a bad thing, but in our world, it's a challenge to certain people, especially when they want to see a response from you. In the middle of your table topics, silence can be powerful. You can use a 3-second pause to really drill home a point. But when somebody asks you a question, they, I believe, want to hear some kind of acknowledgement of the question and a response. They want to hear you speaking as opposed to see you thinking. And that's the difference here, that we can challenge ourselves with this first Murphy's Law to make it going. And what will you be doing in Murphy's Law world when you're using those unconscious words for 4 to 6 seconds? You're going to make a decision. And it's 2 choices only. You're going to make a sandwich or tell a story. Make a sandwich or tell a story. So during those 6 seconds, you're thinking, okay, am I going to tell a story? Is there a story that connects to this that I know that would fit? Or if not, maybe I'll just do a standard expository response. When I think of the expository response, I think of those essays you used to work in high school, 500 words. 500 words, can you believe it? 500-word essays, and they had a standard formula, opening and the intro, and then the body, and then the conclusion. And so that's what you want to do. If you think the table topics given to you, you can respond in that expository way, do that. That's fine. That's very powerful. And you'll see that at work as well, where they might expect an expository type response. With that, you need to have an introduction. Say the table topic is, what is the best color? And I would respond using my magic words and say, green is by far the best color. Make a simple statement. That's your thesis, your theory, whatever. Just make it clearly. Clearly, clearly, clear. It doesn't have to be extraordinarily long, but it has to be clear. So take a position and stand there strongly. Even if you're in the middle of the table topic, you're thinking, oh, I chose the wrong response. Still, you stand clearly and finish the formula. And the formula is introduction, followed by how many points? How many points do we need? You definitely need 3 points. Having a chance to fail at table topics again and again in Toastmasters, there's times when I've given 2 points. And you could just see the audience expecting another point. And then I start wrapping it up. They're like, something's missing. You can see that in their eyes. Our audience expects 3 points. Whether it's wrong or right, you got to have 3 points for your expository sandwich type response. So for me, best color is green. Now, green is the color of money. I talk a little bit about money and how nice it is to have it. And I can talk about green is the color of trees and how trees to convert, you know, bad air into good air. And then I could talk about green being the color of luck, and we all need luck in these trying times. So those would be 3 points that would support my opinion that green is by far the best color. And then I get there and I just conclude. And so without a doubt, it's all about green. Boom. Introduction and conclusion are very short and sweet. You state your thesis and restate it, and you put your 3 points in between. You got yourself a little sandwich, a 90-second sandwich that's easy for your audience to digest. You've made it clear what your opinion is or your position is and why it's there. And you've told them again that your opinion is absolutely correct. Now with this, there's no previews or reviews in this table topic speech. You only have 1 to 2 minutes, right? So it's very important that you don't waste any extra time. If you give a 5 to 7 minute sandwich type speech at Toastmasters, they expect you to kind of follow the formula. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. And that's the preview, the body, and the summary are all in those 3 steps. Here, we're eliminating the preview and the review, no summary. You just say, here's my 3 points, and then you conclude. You don't have time for that. Plus, because you're only speaking for about 90 seconds, it's clear that you can get your points across without having to reprise them or, you know, give people a kind of pathway of where you're going. In a 5 to 7 minute speech, you're probably going to want a preview and definitely going to want a summary to make sure that your points came through. But in table topics, you really don't have time for that one. So introduction, 3 points, and a conclusion. And then you go right on and then you're done. The question is, how do you prepare? Because impromptu speaking requires preparation. How do you prepare to make sandwiches when you want to respond in that way? Well, I encourage you to read as much as you can, and not just read stuff in your area of focus. Read broadly, periodicals. I am personally a big fan of physical newspapers. I mean, newspapers that are made out of paper. Can you imagine, right? Of course, there's online versions of that, but for me, reading a newspaper at lunch, I go through, I scan the newspaper. Sometimes I read the first paragraph. Sometimes I read the whole thing. Sometimes I just read the conclusion. That's, you know, all I have time to do, but I get a sense of what's going on. And I have additional fodder for those 3 points that I need to prepare if I'm going to put into a sandwich. So listen, at Toastmasters, you get a lot of great ideas. You get exposed to a lot of different areas, which you've probably never heard about. You'll hear somebody give an icebreaker about growing up in Vietnam. And you're like, wow, I didn't know that about Vietnam. And then you may go and find out more by going on the interwebs. And then of course, when you explore, you know, just don't go to your favorite websites. Find areas that you haven't been before. Responses are great, but even greater, if you can make it happen, are stories. So you have a choice for law number 2. Make that sandwich or tell a story. And I encourage you as often as possible, tell a story. Story has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an ending. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most honored and welcome guests, green is by far the best color. Because when I was 8, it was the color of the Christmas tree during that magical holiday season. Our family didn't have much, but I wanted a saxophone. I wanted to be a saxophone player. And I thought there's no way I could get a saxophone. And I woke up early that Christmas morning and I ran to the Christmas tree on the socks, sliding on my tile floor. And there was that Christmas tree in green with the lights blinking and this big, big gift for me. I looked around at my mother and my siblings and they just nodded silently. And so I dived into that big gift, ripped open the paper, and there it was, an alto saxophone just for me. And I remember looking up at that beautiful tree and having that image stuck in my mind forever. That's why green is the best color. So I took the table topics and turned it into a story. I answered the table topics, but not in an expository way. Most times you can tell a story. There's times out there you'll get a table topic or something at work or at an interview or cocktail party where you just can't respond. You have to just put in a sandwich as a response. But if you can, tell a story. And when you tell a story, please, no flashbacks. You don't have time. Once again, it's 90 seconds is your ideal time frame. Use that and just do the beginning, middle, and end. All righty. Now, what we'd like to do for our story prep is make sure that you have stories that have strong emotions for you. For me, that Christmas story was an emotion of joy. What stories do you have that when you recall them, you recall the emotions of happiness, anger, craziness, goofiness, whatever those stories are? When you know those stories and you're coming back to them, even though they're, decades in the past, those emotions should likely come back. And when you add emotion, that emotional truth to your storytelling, that's when the power of your impromptu, quote unquote, your impromptu storytelling comes through. So have those stories with the strong emotions in your quiver, ready to pull out at the appropriate time. Make sure it's 90-second versions. And for this one, as you write out these 90-second version stories, you target about 180 words. Most people, when they're in conversation speak 140 to 180 words per minute. When people are speaking publicly, they slow down just a little bit. So think about 120 words per minute. And because of that, if you're going for a 90-second version, shoot for 180 words. So you have that story prepared. It's written out. You've said it again and again. Ideally, probably one of your 5 to 7 minute speeches at Toastmasters, you can take and shrink down to its core in 90 seconds. So mine your own Toastmaster speech material for those stories that would be appropriate. And if you can create a humorous anecdote, a humorous story, that is extremely powerful. When you tell stories, people remember the stories. When you add humor, people love you. If you can add humor as well, that's what you need. So that's a difficult challenge for me. I know I have my stories. I like to tell serious stories, but if I can add humor, that's what you need to do. So strong emotions, 90-second version, and add humor if you can. So we're going to do a little practice session now. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to use your magic words and then immediately yell sandwich or story. And then I'm going to ask you to explain your choice. I'm not asking you to give me a full 2-minute response, but I'm going to ask you to make the decision while you're using your magic words. And you're thinking, will this be a story or a sandwich? And right after you yell sandwich or story, I was asked you to stop, and I'm going to say, why did you choose sandwich? Why did you choose story? I'm just going to ask a little bit of that reasoning, and that will help develop this idea that a very simple binary choice, sandwich or story. And you got to get used to doing that, making that choice while you're using the magic words. All right, so we're going to start this out with our first volunteer. You'll see how it goes, and then we'll continue on with a few more examples of that to make sure that you know that that choice is made during your use of the magic words. So Abby, who's my first victim for this exercise?
Anne-Marie Joseph.
Anne-Marie, are you ready? Anne-Marie, ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
It depends on what you got for me.
Okay, so once again, Anne-Marie, I'm going to give you a table topic. And as soon as you hear the table topic, please use those Toastmasters magic words. And as soon as you're done with, honored guests, then you yell sandwich or story. While you're speaking those magic words, you're going to make a decision. If this were a real table topic, I would respond with a sandwich, an expository type response, or I would.
So you do the intro as well then?
No intro. Just go, blah, 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 guess, and then say sandwich or story, one or the other. And then I'm going to grill you to see why you chose either sandwich or story. You ready? Okay, here we go. The Great Adventure.
This is a story.
Okay, so why is it a story?
It's a story because you can have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it tells a journey.
Nice.
It gives leverage to life experiences and something you can draw out of your little box of tricks.
Gotcha.
So it's a story.
It's a story. Very good. Nice. Way to kick us off. Thank you so much. Nicely done. Now, who's our next volunteer? Our next victim to go through this?
Nuha.
Nuha? You ready, Nuha?
Yes. Hello.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Nuha. Thank you for volunteering. You're doing great here. So once again, I ask you to use the magic words like Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. And while you're using those words, think, should I respond in a sandwich method or a story method? And just when you're done with the word guess, just say sandwich or story, and then we'll ask why. So, my buried treasure.
Mr. Topic Master, distinguished guests, fellow Toastmasters. Story.
Story. All right, good. You're getting into it. Fantastic. And why would you choose a story for my buried treasure?
Because I think there's a lot of memories that comes with this topic, so I can pick up a story easily and talk about it.
Nice.
That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So these things, if you're feeling it and you feel like you can go with it with a story, that's my advice. Yeah, I think there's a preference for stories. Stories are just more powerful. Sometimes you can't, but that's okay. So who is next, Abby?
Denise.
Elise, you ready to go? Okay. You can thank Abby later, right? All right, here we go, Elise. Pursuit of excellence.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I would say probably sandwich.
Sandwich, okay. And why would you go with a sandwich in this case for you?
You can state your introduction, explain your situation, and then conclude why you said what you just said. It fits it more than a story. It would probably be harder for me to put that into a story.
Good. And it has to be what works for you. You're absolutely right. If this works for you, you go off and do that sandwich. Very nice. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Alrighty, Abby, who's next?
Miriam.
Miriam, you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. Once again, you encourage you to use your magic words, and when you're done with those words, yell out sandwich or story. Miriam, the challenge of COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, the honored guests. Sandwich.
Sandwich. Okay, great.
The word.
All right, fantastic. And why sandwich?
because to me, it's not really summarizing one story, or maybe I didn't have that much of a story about pandemic. Personally, I didn't, have that much a story in mind. It's better for me, but there are a lot of facts that I can summarize and like talk about pandemic and, the situation. So for me, it's more like itemized type of a, topic.
Yes, great, great. Yeah, that idea, you feel confident and you go forward. You've been exposed to the information about COVID throughout this pandemic. So you have information to add into your expository response. It's very good. Well reasoned. Thank you so much. And I'll be just one more, if I may. One more victim, please.
Boris.
Boris.
Hey, hello.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So Boris, built to last.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Sure, built to last.
Built to last. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, most honored and welcome guest. Story.
Story, all right, fantastic. All right, and what made you choose story for this decision?
I think there's some kind of facts about this built to last things. And I think I can make some personal experience as a story to fill in the question.
Nice, nice. No, that's great. And all of you responded as you should from your perspective. Could I make it a story or could I make it a sandwich? Which one's going to work for you? And a different person may make a story when you make a sandwich. That's okay. Whatever works for you so that you can move forward and make that choice and keep going. So that's the second law. The third law is all about connect. Connect. And now my favorite quote is from E.M. Forster's Howard's End. Only connect. Only connect. It's in the opening pages before the title page. And I've always remembered this quote, only connect. And I think it's part of what we're challenged to do as humans. But when it comes to communication, if you have a great story or you put together a great sandwich response, but it doesn't connect to the table topic, you lose. You're disconnected from your audience, from the person who asked the question. So you have to make sure that you connect. And I think there's one way to make sure that that idea of connection is there, and that is to kind of spit back the key words of the table topic to the listener, to the questioner. And so this is, once again, your way of indicating that you heard the question. And it may be that you could do it without regurgitating keywords. I say be safe, use the keywords. One of my first table topics contest I entered at the club level, we actually read the table topics there, and I turned over the piece of paper and it was this line, change is the only constant. And I froze and I thought and I pondered and I had no clue on how to respond to this philosophical concept. Change is the only constant. I was, thinking of my philosophy training in college, trying to remember philosophers, all this stuff. I don't even know how I responded. Basically, I said blah, 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 and then I sat down, and of course, I lost. It's only years later when I realized, dang, I know what I should have done. I should have told a story. And for me, a story would make so much sense, even though it's a philosophical concept begging to be a sandwich response. For me, I would have said, Mr. Toastmaster, change is the only constant, because that's all I was able to keep when I was a young kid. I had older brothers, and that's all they'd let me have. And I could tell a story about being the baby in the family and a few years younger than my brothers and getting beat up and teased and everything like that, and just keeping going. But I was able to keep certain pennies from those situations. And that was my little key to feeling that I could go on. So these are things that you can find out there. And especially when you have your stories prepared, if you just tell some random story that's humorous and smoothly written and ready to go, and it doesn't connect to the table topic, you lose. People may be entertained, but you did not make that connection. So use those keywords to come back and make it so. So yeah, silence sucks. Use your magic words to get going. Tell a sandwich or make a sandwich or tell a story. Make that quick choice and go for it. And then involve some way of indicating that you heard the question, and you do that by using the keywords from the question itself. So those are the three basic laws I would encourage you to challenge yourself. But I would also encourage you to challenge yourself further by having a table topics contest in your club or maybe in your district and jumping into that contest. And when you do, don't fudge it. Don't just say, oh, this is casual impromptu speaking. It's not like a prepared speech. No, no, no. You have to look at the official Toastmasters table topic judges ballot and scoring form. And in that, it will show you all the things that you should be doing when you're speaking in an impromptu manner in a Toastmasters contest, which means these are things you should be doing when you're speaking in an impromptu manner at an interview, at work, even at a social gathering. You should speak powerfully in an impromptu manner by following these guidelines here, because the Toastmasters judges ballots, whether it's the international speech, humorous speech, evaluation, table topics, tall tales, they have so much wisdom in there. I feel like it's distilled wisdom. So I'm excited to show these guidelines to you. Out of 100 points, the development of your table topics response is worth 30 points, 1/3 of that response. And we've went through that development with the sandwich and story. The idea is you have to have an opening body and a close, and it has to be organized. There has to be appropriate sequence to it, and there has to be a smoothness as you go from point 1 to point 2 to point 3 to the conclusion. Make that smooth. This is stuff you'll be requested to have in a prepared speech. This is why table topics is more difficult, because you're supposed to have all this without having a chance to write and practice out your speech. So you need this development there, and that's 1/3 of your score. Then another big chunk is the effectiveness of your response. Now, was there logic? Did it make sense? Not only did it make sense if you're putting a sandwich together with your 3 support points, but did your story make sense? The story within itself, and did it connect to the table topics? And you do that by regurgitating some keywords there appropriately. And how direct and enthusiastic are you? This is one big reason why I think you can get these points for directness and enthusiasm by jumping right in with the magic words. And then, did it achieve your purpose? Green is the best color. Did I prove my point? Whether I said it in the story about the Christmas tree or the 3 points in the sandwich I made in that response. And of course, did the audience seem to respond to it? Hard to tell on Zoom when everybody's muted these days, but we'll be back in front of audiences soon, and you'll be at parties soon. Maybe you'll be at interviews. You'll certainly be in the club soon, face to face. When that does happen, obviously outside of Intercontinental Toastmasters, but when you start going back into the real world, how does the audience respond to your table topics, your impromptu speaking? And then that's 55 points. And then there's more. There's 45 points left. 15 of those points are physical communication. Please remember, Toastmasters look at your appearance. Is it appropriate? I didn't wear a tie today because it's hot here. Didn't want to sweat too much, but I definitely put on a jacket because I wanted to communicate to the audience my respect to you. And that's going to be appropriate, whether it's a work or social event. Knows that your appearance speaks volume before you start speaking. So how is your appearance? And then the body language you use, gestures, perhaps facial expressions, all those types of things that you would use in a regular speech, you use it in table topics as well. and then your speaking area. Here, we're on a Zoom camera. We're limited to some degree, but if you're in a cocktail party and people are right next to you, you have minimal speaking area there. You don't bump people away to add your gestures. You fit into the speaking area. Also, another 15 points is your voice. Voice is so powerful and it helps for your audience to derive meaning. Is your voice flexible and is it audible? Can people hear you? Very important in our Zoom world, but also very important in face-to-face communication. And don't forget the power of language and use it well. It's another 15 points. Is it appropriate to the speech? Does it connect? Is it there? Maybe you're using some dialect and that's appropriate in that time when you're using a character speaking, fine. But make sure that it works within the speech and it's appropriate to the audience. And this is where the judges look for people who try to get on the edge of things to add humor and they're inappropriate for the audience. In general, my recommendation, there's no hard and fast rule, my recommendation is speak to every audience as if you would at a business meeting. What would be appropriate at a business meeting that doesn't offend people? If you offend anybody, you lose. So what's appropriate to the audience? Be aware of that. And then use the correct grammar, pronunciation, and word choice. And especially if you have your stories written out, this won't be a problem. But for your sandwich making, you just have to get in the habit of being at Toastmasters. So all these bonus laws, all these judging laws are stuff you should be doing in your 5 to 7 minute speeches. You also do them in your impromptu speeches. It's more difficult to do so, but you should be doing them as well. All right, quick summary here before we get to Q&A. Impromptu speaking is good for you. It is empowering. I've seen it again and again in my world, and oftentimes I'm at a business meeting and I'll pop in a humorous story and people thank me for that one. So, you know, you don't know when you're going to have to speak impromptu. That's why you have to be prepared always to speak impromptu. I encourage you, don't think in silence while your audience is waiting. Remember, you're communicating before you open your mouth. And if you're just sitting there thinking, people may say, did he even hear me? You want to make sure you communicate with enthusiasm and directness. Use exposition, or even better, a story. Make a sandwich or tell a story. I ask you to remember that simple choice because while using the magic words, you just don't have time to think of a whole variety of approaches. Let me keep it very simple. Make that sandwich or tell that story. You know, and tie your response to the topic within what you received by the use of those keywords. Make sure that you connect to what they asked. If your response doesn't connect, it doesn't work. And you give those prepared speech quality answers when you're doing it in a contest. And by doing it in a contest and practicing in the contest, I hope you develop those skills for giving that prepared speech quality answer every time you speak in an impromptu manner. All right, we've been going for a little while now, and I want to see if you have any questions. Maybe they're in the chat. Do you see any questions in the chat or anything I need to respond to, or if anybody wants to raise their hand?
Anne-Marie, you had a question earlier?
Yes, the opening.
Yes, go ahead.
The opening is very important.
Yes.
And for me, saying good afternoon, Toastmasters guest and everybody else can come over as being extremely boring and unimaginative, particularly if everybody else is saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a way of varying it. I saw it at a competition where somebody comes into a dramatic opening and then they say the Toastmasters guest.
Yes.
So they have some amazing way of doing it, or a prop or a verse or a quote, and then they say good evening. I don't know. To me, it just seems very dry after the third or fourth person said it in the tabletop.
You're absolutely right. So I go back to the idea when you say, hi, how are you? How you doing? Those types of greetings, they are empty words in terms of meaning, but they communicate more than that. So the address communicates more than just the standard words itself, just communicates some respect and a connection. And if you feel like you want to jump in without the magic words, that's fine too. What I suggest for table topics response is use the magic words just to give you a chance to think. That doesn't mean they have to be delivered in a dry manner. Please remember that most often people don't remember what word you say, they remember how you say it. So if you're going to use the magic words as your thinking time, if you want a little style or a little smile in it, practice that. Practice it with a certain kind of fun energy or maybe serious power that you can use those magic words, that the way of delivery communicates something different as opposed to Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. You know, you want that powerful thing. And the reason I'm saying to use the magic words is to prevent silence. If you don't need to think about sandwich or story, you're ready to go, jump right in. You can throw the magic words in there if you want. I recommend that because people like to be addressed. They like those polite nothings. But if you come out with a quote, you're ready to go, or once upon a time, you have a story, go for it. You don't have to use magic words, but I believe it's a tool for you to think about your response before you dive into the response. Great question. Thank you so much. Yeah.
We have some questions in chat. Miss Deanna says stories are love stories, romance, and powerful. And Margaret is asking, how many prepared stories would you suggest to have ready for a club table topics contest?
Yeah, so the first question, I would say 5, and you're going back to emotion times, you know, embarrassment, happy, sad. Yeah, a love story always is powerful. What are the story that kids ask their parents again and again? How did you and daddy meet, mommy? You know, how did you two meet? And those stories, people love to hear those types of stories. It's fun. People are fascinated by people. So yeah, tell a romance story. Have that as one of your 5 stories, but have that breadth of emotions, not all happy, joyous, successful stories. What about a time of failure when you were embarrassed or mad? Something happened, you know, in an interesting fashion, a challenge at work. Those kind of variety of stories will give you the flexibility that you need to take a story for a table topics response. And so you say, oh, that doesn't fit story number 3, but it fits story number 5. And you'll get that as soon as you hear it. Oh, yeah, that's connected to story number 5. Now, story number 5, it's a 90-second blurb that's out there ready to go. And you have to connect it some way with the key words to there. I go back to Robin Williams, who is known for impromptu, and he had his material written out by professionals and vetted and practiced, and he would practice the material at, you know, small comedy venues to make sure it was good material, and then he would put him into his routine. But he wouldn't just come up and spout his routine. He would come out and say to the audience, and so, oh, I see there's a lady with a blue jacket on. That's very nice. That's the same color as my first car. And then he goes into the prepared material about his first car when he was in college. So those are the ways that he connected. And I encourage you to make sure that you keep that connection in there. Have those 5 stories, maybe 10. Don't want too many, because if you have a bunch, you won't be able to choose amongst them when you get into the table topics. And if one of those 5 doesn't work, boom, you know you're doing a sandwich response. Thank you.
Miss McCain has a question. Miss McCain, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for such a wonderful opportunity and, giving your, great input on all these questions. I do have a question, and sometimes I do get kind of frozen, in the moment when, I'm given an impromptu. So what's the best way to handle that type of situation when you're just frozen, like nothing comes to you, and you're trying to kind of think in that moment? So what do you do?
Yeah. Some echo there, but I think the key is, and once again, we go back to the magic words. they give you the gift of getting you talking, right? So you got a tough table topic. You might take a quick breath, but I encourage you to jump in. Slow 6-second response using the magic words, and that gets you talking. And if you force yourself to make a choice, then that will lead you down the path. And probably in those situations, you're going to have to make a sandwich. You probably don't have a story. If it didn't hit you at the beginning, it kind of froze you, you'd have to make that sandwich. So you go in and you use the standard thing for writing test responses to written questions, where you have to write a couple of paragraphs. You take the question again and you just kind of turn it around and stuff. Yes, the best colors in the world are really green based. And you make that statement and then you scramble to find some points along the way. But yes, take the question, turn it around. So that gives you a little extra time to make that sandwich. But yeah, go for it. And in table topics, you have the freedom to fail. Please remember, I encourage you to dive in, try it in Toastmasters, and the more practice you get, you'll get better at that, and you're least likely to freeze, especially if you've frozen in Toastmasters a few times without negative consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Smita has our next question. Smita?
Hi, this is Smita. Great presentation, Brendan. I wanted to propose another method. You mentioned exposition or story. This is probably easy, but do not want to complicate further. This method is called what, so what, and now what.
So what?
So what, and now what.
Great, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Smita's laws, right? And she's going to give you that kind of simple three-way choice there and how to respond. And that's different than Murphy's Law. And that's what I love about Toastmasters. We go through those different types of things. And so when you go, what kind of table topics response, Smita, would that be?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, you're presenting the idea of coming up with three possible pathways to respond to a table topic. You said what, so what, and now what. What would be a what response for a table topic? How would that work?
Sure, let me try this impromptu.
Yeah.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honorable guests, I think green is the best color ever, because our entire earth is green. Where you find green, you find happiness.
Nice.
The world is so much better if it is green.
Gotcha.
But think about the global warming. What can we do about it? The world color, the best color is diminishing. The carbon footprint is rising. What can we do about it? Perhaps we can reduce, reuse, and recycle. So that's it. Sorry, I don't know how long.
Yeah, and you just jumped in. Thank you for jumping in and giving an example of what you're doing here. And this is again another quiver that everybody in the audience can use, a kind of formulation that will help you respond. What is, so what, and now what, and just moving forward. Great example. Thank you, Smita. Very nice.
Thank you.
Cool.
Steve has the next question. Steve?
Steve?
What do you think when someone's dress style is kind of their own style and may not fit with the standard appearance?
Yeah. So for impromptu speaking, I think you want to be just a little more conservative. For prepared speaking, especially humorous speaking, your outfit may speak before you're going. But once again, you communicate before you open your mouth. And does what you're wearing distract from the audience's expectations, the interviewer's expectations, people at the party, their expectations, and does that put a frame of reference around your response that you don't want? So if you could be, appropriate to the audience with your dress and garb, I think that makes it easier to connect to the table topic.
Steve, was that okay for you? Can you hear us?
No, sorry, I had to duck out. My landlady needed me for something.
Okay. Can you repeat the answer, Brendan? I'll ask you the question again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we talked about the appropriateness of dress when doing impromptu speaking. I think for impromptu speaking, you're not sure what the topic's going to be. You want to dress appropriate to the audience, kind of what the audience wears, connect with that, because you don't know how they'll view you before you open your mouth. So the idea is to just be there, kind of standard. And then when you open your mouth, you can be crazy and in your interesting character way, but without the dressing. I would say for like prepared humorous speeches, international speeches, dressing that connects to what you're talking about, that's a different situation that you want to have that option. I saw one guy who came in from Gambia and he was dressed in formal Gambian attire. And he was talking about going to the bank in this attire because it was a formal occasion for him. So it was a great use of his wardrobe to help communicate the story. Table topics, you can't necessarily plan in advance. So I say, wear those kind of standard outfits that fit the audience.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to make your style, what you're saying is making your style fit the speech. And so you have that consistency.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
No, thank you.
Jayamal has a question.
Thanks, Abhijit. Hi, Brendan. The question I have is, I've seen in clubs where the table topics master asks a question, but the person doesn't answer that question, but answers previous question. So I was wondering, is that something that's encouraged, or your thoughts on it?
Yes, no, we're talking about Murphy's Law. I do think that should be illegal, that type of thing. And it's illegal for a variety of reasons, or should be illegal for a variety of reasons. One, it's like, oh, that person had 2 minutes or 3 minutes to prepare their table topic based on what somebody responded for. And two, it defeats the whole purpose. You're in Toastmasters to challenge yourself to growth. So you take that difficult, uncomfortable table topics you just received, and you were like, oh, I wish I had the previous question. Okay, that's not going to happen. That wish is not going to be made possible. You got a terrible question. You go for it, and you fail. You fail in your table topics event, whether it's a contest or whatever, but you go for it, you give it your all, and you make sure you connect with it and respond either in a story or a sandwich. You do all that and people go, that was terrible, and you grow from that. Because in an interview, if you get a question and you say, no, I don't want to answer that question, but I think I'll refer back to a previous question, you lose. And if you're in a social setting where you think people are more casual and people ask a question, you go, oh, well, Barbara, thank you for that question, but I want to respond to the question you asked Harry over there. It's like, it's just rude, it's stupid. So yes, don't do that if at all possible. And if somebody does it in your club, just make sure they don't win if you vote for best table topics. And if you're the general evaluator, please bring that up. You're saying, we're here in Toastmasters to grow. Please let yourself be challenged. Please be open to failure here, because by failing in the club, you will succeed outside of the club. Great question. That's a pet for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you.
Nuha has the next question. Nuha.
Thank you. My question is, I'm thinking this is because I'm only a new Toastmaster, but how do you avoid being carried out with your thought? Like I will be thinking, okay, I will go for a story, but in my mind, I will be thinking, why did I go for the story? Why didn't I go for the sandwiches method? And sometimes I find myself like saying something that I didn't want to say just because I'm busy thinking about something else. So how do you stay focused?
That's good. And once again, we talk about Toastmasters being the place of failure, so you can succeed outside. So I would encourage you to do that if you follow these guidelines, excuse me, these laws, these Murphy's laws. If you follow them, you will get better at making the right choice and sticking with the choice. Because once you start, you have no choice. So if you start with saying making a sandwich and you're there in the middle of point one, and you're thinking, oh, dang, I have a great story. It's too late. You finish out. But if this happens again and again, where you're choosing a sandwich when you should have chose a story or vice versa, you're learning from that, from making the wrong choice in that particular situation, and you will get better. But that's why you encourage yourself to volunteer for Toastmasters or talk to the table topics master and say, yeah, please ask me a question today. I'm still practicing, and give me a tough one. Ask for a tough one, and any table topics master worth his or her salt will drool at the fact of, or the opportunity to give somebody a tough response. But yes, once you make that choice of sandwich or story, you need to go for it and you need to stick with it.
Kevana has the next question.
Hi, Brendan. You can tell now that I'm asking the questions that are more pertinent to me, my own situation. But anyway, my other question was, when do you know to stop before it becomes just blabbering, like you're not really getting across? So how do you stop yourself in the middle of your thought when you know that it's not making any sense?
Oh my goodness. First, never admit that to yourself. It always makes sense, right? The word salad always makes sense to somebody. Please remember that words are a tool for communication, but the reason why we are public speakers and not public writers per se is that people look at us in total. How our body appears, it's 55%. What our vocal variety says, 38% of the message comes through those two things. Only 7% comes through the words. So your directness, your enthusiasm, even if you make some word mistakes or you're kind of tailing off there, you want to do that. It is important, however, to finish, right? And to finish your thought or to finish the table topic with a conclusion. So please know that when you jump into that structure of a story, you're going to have a beginning, middle, and end. And maybe in the middle, you're kind of hitting a little tangent there. You bring it back and bring it to the end. But remember, you have to get to that ending, whether it's the conclusion of the sandwich or the end of the story. And we bring you to Toastmasters again and again, where you can fail and flail with that process, where you might be, kind of hitting a little tangent or speaking a little on the aside. Keep focused and keep practicing. Thank you.
Brendan, Miss Deanna says the sandwich is 3 slices. Toastmaster, organizer, and this club's powerful.
I love that. I love that. It's a very good, very good. Yes, those 3 points are right there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ashutosh, go ahead.
I had a question. So your first law says that silence sucks, and you asked us to not be silent during work meetings when you're asked a question. But sometimes the expectation of the audience is that they want you to think about it. So how do you handle silence in that?
Yeah, once again, if you know that, that they want you to think about it, that's fine. I would just say that silence before you speak communicates something. I just want to emphasize that. And if in this situation that you mentioned, they expect you to cogitate for a while before you do that, if that's clear, then that's part of what you're communicating. You're communicating respect to them. Those are their expectations. That being said, if you can start speaking right away, please, I encourage you to do that, because that offers a different level of confidence, directness, enthusiasm, that you're confident that you can respond. So yeah, you have to tailor this to your audience, but please avoid that silence between the end of the question and you start speaking. That's extremely powerful from what I've seen.
Thank you.
Any other questions going once?
Yeah, I have.
Go ahead, Jamal.
So I was just wondering, like, sometimes when you are a table topics master and you ask a question to a person, but instead of that person, it's somebody else who responds. Who corrects it? Is it the table topics master who says, no, I asked this question to this particular person, or is it the evaluator who says, it's a wrong person answered it? I was just wondering.
Yeah, in terms of meeting dynamics, when you are the table topics master, you are in charge of the meeting.
Yeah.
If somebody speaks out of turn, remember, we have the basic rule, one person speaking at a time, and you say, Bob, thank you so much. I have another great question for you. We're going to go back to Harry, who's speaking right now on this question, but we'll definitely get you next. Something like that to just say, hey, please wait your turn. And that, doesn't really help anybody grow in terms of impromptu speaking, but meeting management growth is very important, and everybody needs to learn one person speaks at a time for clear communication. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Any other questions? Nuha and Miriam? Miriam, go ahead.
I have a question. Oh, okay, do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I have a question. We have this club through my company, and then people in my company, they go a little bit creative. Like, for example, last time we have this table topic master that they showed different slides, and they ask audience to kind of give a pitch about that product.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like speak up, and it was a movie. The other one was a product that took me 2 minutes to figure out what that is, and they asked me to speak. So it didn't really go well. But I think my question is that we just started our club, and I want to know if these kind of things, I know that it should be harder on some people, it's easier on some others, but is it encouraged, or we need to just, at the beginning of, starting off the club, ask the, the table topic masters to stick to, simpler topics, or no, just they can challenge you, the audience as they wish?
Yeah, no, I definitely think when you're the table topics master, especially for a new club, you want to encourage people to get comfortable with the format, impromptu speaking, and there's ways of doing training in your club on how to do table topics and how to respond in a basic way. So I think, you do that training, you encourage the table topics masters to ask the questions. Like, I believe in the contest guide for table topics, they say the table topic should be general in nature, that encourages everybody to give a response. So you don't say, so what do you think of molecular theory about atoms smashing into each other? You don't ask that kind of stuff. So these are the things that you want to do. You want to encourage people to speak.
Yes.
I'm a big fan. I don't know if you have theme meetings, but when I'm a table topic master and there's a meeting themed, I try to connect my table topics to the theme, and just to because everybody's kind of thinking about it at the same time, and they can join in that way. So if at all possible, I think that's one of my easy solutions, because their minds are already in that area. But, like the contest speeches, table topics where I've been a Toastmaster or a contestant, there's things like my buried treasure, my greatest journey, my, fantastic adventure. Those are the types of things that encourage people to talk, and you want them to talk in impromptu. Good point.
Kennedy,
Yeah.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just have one small follow-up following question. So, I mean, in one of the meetings, someone suggested that, because we have 15 minutes for table topic, we just choose one topic, in the whole 20 minutes, we just choose 5 topics and ask 3 to 4 people to speak about it.
No.
Recommended?
No. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, because you do want to challenge them. You want to challenge them.
Of course.
Simple questions, but you want them to not be prepared. You want them to have to think on their feet. And it's not easy. That's my thing is, as I said at the beginning, I thought Toastmasters was kind of fun. You fail, who cares? But then in the real world, when I had to speak in an impromptu manner at that meeting at AT&T, it made all the difference. And I was prepared because I had to speak on my feet again and again and again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nuha, then I'll come to Kennedy. Nuha, go ahead.
thank you. My question is sometimes table topics, when you get asked question, you won't understand exactly the question or maybe some words of the question. So it happened to me once. I was the table topic master and asked someone a question he couldn't understand or the question. I had to change the topic for time management. But then in Toastmaster, we can manage this. But in real life, if someone asks you a question that you can't really understand what's the question, what to do in this situation.
A very good point. Like, how can you make a connection with the question when you had no clue what the question was? This happened at our District 57 Table Topics finals several years ago, where the person just did not enunciate properly, and the contestants would get up there and they'd be like, what did he just say? And it was very tough, but you go forward. And in that case, outside of Toastmasters, you say, so let me get this straight. You're asking about, blah, 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 blah. And if they nod their head, then you say, okay, well, we'll just continue on. If they say, no, I'm asking about that, that's fine. Obviously, if you misheard them, that happens all the time, especially in our Zoom world. You want clarification. So yeah, definitely in the real world, you might want to clarify what the question is. In Toastmasters, if you think that question wasn't the question, you go with what you think the question was and you take it as a challenge. Even if it's impossible to respond to, go for it anyway.
Okay, thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Kennedy has the next question.
Yes. Hello, Brendan. I certainly appreciate your giving us this 3 laws. I haven't thought of it this way before. My question is, I have just done something that is not directly answering the question, which is contrary, I think, to one of your criteria when you stated that you should be effective, and under effectiveness, one of the criteria for judging effectiveness is directness.
Yes.
And I think that I don't know if you agree. I think that having an extended greeting and discussing the question without answering the question, does that satisfy that you are not being direct and therefore not being effective, which is one of the criteria there?
Yeah, I think in the real world, once again, you want to respond, you want to connect. And, if you're just like, that reminds me of a time, when I, ate, tater tots when I was 3. You have to connect some way, somehow. And, if people don't see the connection initially, but you bring it at the end and you say, that's why it is important to have a balanced diet. Boom, you've made it there, and you didn't establish the connection at the beginning, but if you've kept their interest, that's okay, but you have to conclude with that. And once again, I think that's not only in Toastmasters or contests, but in the real world, you have to somehow draw it all together. And to me, it's easier to start with the connection being clearly stated, but what you're talking about is an opportunity to be very artful and have some fun. And if you surprise people at the very end where they're thinking, what's he talking about? And then you bring the connection in, that will garner you great applause, maybe a trophy, and certainly a lot of fun at work and in social situations.
Well, how about the extended greeting that you're using 6-7 seconds before you answer the question?
Yeah, it's
that's not bypassing directness?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Once again, when we talk about the address, the idea, we as humans do not like chaos. So part of our way of acknowledging the transfer of control of a speaking time, an event, a meeting, is to acknowledge the transfer of power. We do it often, or used to do it with handshakes in Toastmasters, shaking hands all the time, and then saying, Mr. or Madam Toastmaster. But both those are indications of control. And those are both, and it's also a polite nothing that says, I acknowledge you as an audience. And that is, I think, an accepted behavior of transitioning too. Now, as we had in a previous question, somebody might have a great quote to start with or jump into a story. That's fine too. If you want to avoid those magic words, that's your choice. I do think it's nice to indicate transfer control and addressing the audience as well. Once again, polite nothings like Mr. Toastmaster or hi, how are you? They are vital to our world. They don't have any content, but they are vital nevertheless to our world. So, choose your method well. If you say, oh, that doesn't help me with directness, I think it's a transitional thing between the question and your response that you can use to say, hey, I'm talking now. Yes, I'm doing the polite nothing now, but I'm talking. I'm not sitting here thinking. And then you say, okay, here's the official address. Boom, I go into it and I move on.
Great, thank you.
Boris?
Thank you, Brandon. I want to ask a following up question similar to Kevin, but it's a more particular case. So imagine you have a table topic and you decide to use the sandwich and you have two ideas and you make the lettuce and you make the tomato of it, but you just stop and you can't make the meat of it and you are not a vegetarian. So do you want to stab it with a stick bread, or maybe you have to just like maybe fill in the egg with the sandwich?
Yeah, this is the power of hope and optimism, right? So you start the sandwich, you think you've got a strong point, you have two support points, and you know, by the time you get through those 2 points, you'll get the third point. If you don't have the third point, you can't fake it. You just say, and that's why green is the best color out there after your second point. What I, emphasize again and again is you'll see that in the audience's eyes. They have 3 points, but if you only have 2, there's no sense in trying to fake it at that point. Just close it out and hope you do better than the other people. But you're absolutely right. It's a difficult thing, and you start down that path. You have to continue until it's time to close.
Dennis has a question. Dennis?
Brendan, I'm going to follow Kennedy and piggyback off of him when he was talking about direct response. One of the things I have been told we can do, and I have done, is flip the question. If it's a question that I really don't have an answer for, or something I don't have an experience in, I will flip the question and talk about what I do have an experience in or an interest in. What's your take on that?
So if the word experience appeared in the question and you say, I think what you're talking about is very fascinating. I have a similar experience. You've made the connection, you've made the transition. If the question doesn't have that word and you're just, changing it up, I would avoid that in Toastmasters, but because I want you to fail and flail with it in Toastmasters. But in the real world, definitely you want to somehow engage in discussion and say, ask more about the question, right? So you hear this question, you're thinking, I don't have a response. I'll start with the magic words. Mr. Toastmaster, blah, 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 guest. I'm going to go for a sandwich, but I'm still not sure what to say. And then you flip the question around. It's the experience of these kinds that make a difference. And then you say, okay, well, my experience that made a difference in my life is. So it would be something like that you could do potentially in the real world, but you can certainly do it in Toastmasters and try. But as you say, it's not easy when you get a question like that. I encourage you to give it a shot in Toastmasters.
Back to you, Dharani.
Thank you, Abhijit.
Miss Deanna says, my future is table topics master this club. I think you impressed us.
You will all be challenged appropriately. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Brendan here. Thank you, Brendan, for introducing us to Murphy's laws. They were simple and it seems easy to implement. And also thank you for keeping us engaged with the practice sessions. I hope all our victims had fun with that. And thank you everyone for joining us for this meeting. We are Intercontinental Toastmasters and we meet every Saturday, the same time at the same link. We'd like to have the guests visit us anytime. So feel free to join us and we'd like to have you. On that note, thank you. If anyone would like to add anything, we can stop and chat and discuss. If not, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dharani. Sarika has one last question.
Oh,
Brendan.
Sure.
This actually was a follow for what Dennis had said. I had seen a table topic contest in which the question was, give your evaluator pitch. The lady did not understand what an evaluator pitch was. So she took it, flipped it around and gave a pitch for an evaluator and an evaluator company, basically an elevator company rather.
Love it. I love it.
It's an elevator pitch. So she turned it around. She didn't understand the usage. And there was another one where I said, stuck in the mud. It's the usage stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
And the person told a story about being stuck in the mud.
Yes, yes. And once again, there's a connection there and there's fun. And the phrase elevator pitch is a common kind of phrase, but not everybody uses it. So for her, she didn't say, oh yeah, let me answer another question. No, she took it and she connected with that tough question. And I'm sure it was incredible and lots of fun. That's what you got to do. Absolutely.
Can you clarify the timing for table topics, please?
Yeah, so in table topics, we ask you to speak for a minimum of 1 minute. And remember, you're giving a mini speech. Contrast this with what you see on commercials, video commercials. They can do so much in 15 seconds or 30 seconds, give you tons of information to persuade you to buy. But those are all, worked to the microseconds to make them effective. A mini speech is different than a commercial, and you want to get your point across. You don't want to just say, oh yeah, green's a great color. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, goodbye. No, you could say that and respond to the question, but you're not giving a table topics a mini speech. I think, you do that for a minimum of a minute, and then 90 seconds is what I think is the sweet spot, especially if you have a 90-second story, but you can go to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But I think that's pushing it for most audience members. Remember, our attention spans are very short these days. So you want to go for 90 seconds in general, I think. If you have a longer story and goes for 2 minutes, that's fine as well. Please know that a lot can be said in 1 to 2 minutes. You look at elections and campaigns where they have debates. Basically, those debates are a series of table topics. Same kind of similar timing, 1 to 2, sometimes 2 to 3, but those are the kind of response times, and a lot is said in 1 to 2 minutes. So it's a powerful chunk of time for you. And the good thing is, in that short time, people often don't lose attention.
Thank you, Brendan. Before I get to Miriam, the next month's workshop is How to be Distinguished Toastmaster by Dennis Dawson. Yeah. Brendan, Miriam is asking, are you going to share your information with us?
Yes.
Contact
Albie
information.
has my information, and so I don't know if you can share that with the group or just my email. And yeah,
I will do that.
Just
Thank you.
Masters and that. And
perfect.
Yeah, I'll appreciate that. Thank you so much, Albie. Yeah.
Perfect. Dennis, can you tell us what you are going to include in that workshop? How to be a distinguished Toastmaster? Dennis, are you frozen? I think Dennis is frozen.
Or he's having dinner.
He's not. He was eating food during my presentation. How dare
No,
you?
he usually goes towards the end. He's on California time. I'm on East Coast. So for me, it's midnight. It's tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. I think Deanna, do you have a question? What do you got?
Well, she could put her question in chat and I'll read it.
Oh, okay. There she is. You're welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Deanne. Thank you so much. It was an honor. And thank you, Abby, for the invite. And appreciate
Thank
what
you
this club
so much.
does as an intercontinental, but also international Toastmasters. Great example of what Zoom can do for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandon. We really appreciated you. And Dennis Dawson is back. Dennis, are you there now?
There he is.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yes. Yep. Dennis, can you tell us what are you going to talk about in the next month's workshop? How to be distinguished Toastmaster.
I will talk about the necessary requirements for earning the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, but I will put a spin on it that will put a smile on everyone's face as they recognize that they are already distinguished Toastmasters.
We are looking forward to that, Dennis. Thank you so much.
And then you can also